Heard you're having money problems.
No, you didn't.
Listen, I got the answer. You declare bankruptcy, all your problems go away.
That is a good point.
Bankruptcy, Michael, is nature's do-over. It's a fresh start. It's a clean slate.
Like the witness protection program.
Exactly.
Not at all.
I declare bankruptcy!
Dude, I remember where I was when that episode came out, and I remember laughing so hard I thought I was going to die. I have referred to that so many times in my life.
I don't know why they thought they could play that and then have me do this segment.
I declare.
Okay.
Somebody told me, they were like, hey, I think I'm about retiring. I'm like, can you afford to retire? And they looked at me like deer in headlights, and I was like, you can't just declare bankruptcy like Michael Scott. That's
God,
the greatest it's ever. It's awesome.
That's one of the best clips ever.
All right,
but
so Jade, what is bankruptcy? What is it? There's all these different kinds and numbers and colors. What kind is it?
It's basically a legal process that you can go through if you're buried under so much debt that you're like, I don't know if I can pay it. I don't know what to do. And so what you're doing is you're submitting it to the court, and they're looking at everything. They're looking at your assets, your liabilities, talking about basically what you owe versus what you own. And then they're going to decide, can they actually pay this back or not, right? And then the court decides if you can't pay back your debt, they're going to look at that and they're going to say, if you have means to pay, how do you pay it back? And if you don't have means to pay, what they will look at canceling, okay? They might cancel some of the debt. They might cancel all of the debt. They might have you pay back some of it. So it's basically letting the court look at your money and do what we do on this show, which is say, here's what you should do. Let's look at it. Can you afford it? How long would it take you to pay it back? All of that. So here's the thing. If you file for bankruptcy, in some cases, you might have to sell some of the things that you have in order to pay back the money, right? You might have to sell houses or cars, that sort of thing. And so that's how that works. So here's the thing. Bankruptcy, it can stop a foreclosure, right? If your house is in foreclosure or in the process of being repossessed, it can stop that process. It can stop your wages from being garnished. Like if you're in so much debt that the government is popping in there and garnishing wages or whatever, bankruptcy can stop that from happening. It can help you clear out some debt, right? Like if you've got a bunch of medical bills or a bunch of credit card debt, it can help clear that. Sorry, student loans are not on the list for those of you inquiring. It does not cover other government debts. It doesn't cover things like child support or alimony. You are on the hook for that, okay? So you may have heard what John was talking about. There's different types of bankruptcy, right? You hear them spoken about as chapters, right? The one that you hear most is Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. That's the ones that you're going to hear that we talk about on the show a lot because they apply to personal finances, okay? So Chapter 13, this is basically when the court says, hey, you need to repay some or all of your debts. Some of them we're going to cancel and some of them you're going to pay off, and we're going to put you on a repayment plan. And that payment plan is usually between 3 to 5 years. And again, it sounds suspiciously close like what we do here. It's very close to that. So all the time when people call in, they're like, man, I'm thinking about filing bankruptcy. I'm like, they're going to tell you to sell your stuff and they're going to tell you to pay off your debt and get on a plan to do it. That's what we do here. And the great thing about not doing it through bankruptcy is you still have control over it. All right. It's not the court reaching in and saying, yeah, you're going to sell that vehicle and you're going to let go of that. You know, you get to control it. All right. I digress. Chapter 7. This is when the court reaches in and they say, hey, we're going to sell all your assets and we're going to just erase your remaining debts. And some of you might be thinking, Jade, this is great. I want them to erase my debts. That's what I want. But the thing you're forgetting is it takes up to 10 years for bankruptcy to be cleared off of your credit report. 10 years. All right. And again, that's them reaching their hand into your life and they're taking the things that they can take. They're selling off your stuff and you have to just stand there and watch them do it. And so that's kind of what this looks like. When you file bankruptcy, you have to go through credit counseling afterwards. It's kind of like, hey, now we're going to try to teach you how to manage your money better because you went through this. And obviously, it's going to cost you money. The entire process is probably going to cost you around $3,000 or more because there's filing fees and attorney's fees attached to it. And of course, the downside is banks know about this, clients and businesses know about this, and they get to choose whether or not they want to work with you or not because of this bankruptcy. So it is not a cure-all. It is not a catch-all. Yes, there are other types of bankruptcy. Chapter 11, that has to do with businesses. So if you ever hear a business file for Toys R Us files for bankruptcy, right? It's just a way that they can reallocate their debt and probably stay in business. Chapter 12, that's another type of bankruptcy. You don't hear about it a lot unless you're into farming or a fisherman, that kind of thing. Chapter 15, again, for international cases. And then Chapter 9, that usually applies to municipalities and things like that, state and local government, schools, that sort of thing. So the key ones that we talk about in personal finance, again, Chapter 7, Chapter 13. And again, while we don't recommend filing for bankruptcy, when you do this, you have to file the paperwork. They're going to ask for certain things. They want your tax returns. They want your proof of income, proof of debt, and that's what they're going to use to ultimately determine what is going to happen if you're going to be in Chapter 7, Chapter 13, what you have to pay back, what they're going to sell off, and what gets cleared. So that's how this works. The thing to walk around and walk away from this is bankruptcy. It's all encompassing. It's life-changing. Dave Ramsey, he's got the most popular bankruptcy story I know of. I've never filed because most of our debt was student loans, but it's not something that we recommend here. And it's for the reason that I've said before. At the end of the day, they're kind of doing what we teach here. They're looking at everything, listing the debts out, just like we would tell you to do. Hey, list out the debts. And then they walk through and say, okay, we can sell that off, sell that off, sell that off. If you call in here, we're going to tell you, sell the car. Okay, get rid of the 4Runner. Okay, can you sell some of those old clothes? We're going to tell you what you can sell. And then they're going to say, okay, with whatever's next, you got to get after it. And they say, hey, whatever's next, you got to pay it off in 3 to 5 years. The only thing with us is for most people who work the Ramsey plan, they're out of debt in 2 years or less. And so I'm just saying, and you don't have to have the scars that come with, the government's hand reaching in and selling off your, 4x4 or whatever.
I think that's maybe the most important call out here is there are a few things more stressful and more destructive to an individual in a marriage unit than putting your face in your hands and saying we're bankrupt.
Yeah. Like you take the control. You take
you're done.
The control out of your hands.
The government has to come take apart our lives and sell it because we're out. It's not something to be taken lightly.
No.
Dave still has PTSD, and it was 30 years ago, right?
Okay, I bet he does.
Still a part of his life. You can still hear it on him, right?
This.